Paul Doswell is an exceptionally interesting character. He is the co-owner of Drew Smith Homes, which is a significant property company down in Southampton, which I'm sure we'll hear a little bit more about, in the Hampshire area. He also happens to be, which is rather enchanting, a father of 7, which I'm sure he'll tell us a little bit about. And on top of that, he's manager currently, and I apologise to those boys out there that are in the same league, but he's currently the manager of Sutton United, sitting on top of the conference with a very big game this week where it could all be clinched. So ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, please welcome Paul Doswell to join me. If we start...
But it did.
If we start just before we got to the 7 children, in the younger days, where did it just start off with, by sort of telling us where it all started for you? Was it sport? Was it business? What was your early sort of inklings?
No, I didn't have a clue about business. I was totally in love with all sport, really. I represented Hampshire at cricket, Southampton at table tennis and tennis, and football was an absolute passion. And it's remained so. I mean, all sport really drives me, really, sport, and the amount of people that I've met from sport. One of the beautiful things about sport is you can meet someone there and then you can go and meet a lord. So it taught me a lot of life's principles for me, teamwork, hard work, ethics, and I think the amount of different people you meet is a blessing, really. I think that's the key part for me. Was a decent footballer, very, very quick, scared like cowardly custard, couldn't head the ball. Didn't like a tackle, used to ride the tackles, was back in those days people could really crunch you from the back. So not the bravest. And now as a manager you're asking all your players to do all the stuff that you don't do or didn't do. But got as far as representing Southampton schoolboys, Hampshire schoolboys, played for England schoolboys in the colleges under 18s. All had the dream, like we all do, to be a pro footballer. Wasn't good enough. Broke my leg at 17 when I was trials and with Chelsea for 2 weeks. Broke it then, and that was me done, really, in terms of being a professional footballer.
Just picking up on something that you've just said there, because that is something that in the game of football, unfortunately, lots of young players, and we've got quite a few of them here, who hopefully will all go on and fulfil their dreams. Tell us how you dealt with that moment you understood that you wouldn't necessarily get to your dream of becoming pro.
Badly, I think. One of the things that over the last 15 years of being manager at Eastleigh and now subsequently Sutton is I've seen a number of academy players come to our football club, and they find it extremely difficult to be told one day by Arsenal that they're not good enough, and then the next day they're finding themselves at Eastleigh or a Sutton, and it's such a culture shock to them. Not only the football, but just the environment. And one of the things that I say to all the young kids that come to us, is that the first part is getting the mental side of the game back right, because you've introduced me to Ryan Burge as a prime example. The best example I can give you at the moment is Craig Eastman, who was at Arsenal. He had a 5-year contract. He ended up at loan, as Arsenal often do with their players. So he went to Colchester, Wickham, and he ended up at Yeovil. And he just assumed that he would get another deal because it was Craig Eastman from Arsenal. No deal came along in the summer, even to the point he was that confident he went on holiday during the summer with his partner and baby. And, without no disrespect to my football club, but it was desperation that he ended up bringing me. And what I would say is, you take Craig Eastman as an example, within this unbeaten run that we're on,
which is how many games?
23 at the moment.
23 games unbeaten, please.
So we, he's a great example of someone who's realises where he's at. Has been, for me, levels above what we're playing against, and also even what he's with. And he's now put himself in a fantastic position with the amount of clubs that are looking at him to go back into the professional environment. So you've got Craig as being one end of the spectrum. And then I can give you 99 other examples of lads that just aren't even good enough to play at our level. And it's a real shame because it breaks them too early, really. And from there, from getting the broken leg, I ended up playing to the level that I'm managing at now. I half a decent living from that, but realised that that wasn't ever going to be enough. So at 20, I got into the property world.
And that's
very brief.
And then the property world for you obviously has grown. To just tell us a little bit about the work that you do with the property.
Well, the first port of call is for 10 years. I was actually manager of an estate agency that was doing particularly well. It was a corporate estate agency. Again,
you still remained in football because I think you dealt with some Peter Shilton. I think you couldn't believe when he called you up or something. Is that
that's
right?
true. Yeah. I mean, the problem is it's a younger audience, but for those of you who remember,
Does anyone remember Peter Shilton here?
I keep talking to I talk to my players about like Glenn Hoddle and that, and they look at me as though I'm off a different planet. But for the benefit of the people that do know who Peter Shilton is, he was the England goalkeeper. He was probably the Manuel Neuer of his day. And I remember getting a phone call at work, and he asked to speak to the manager, and that was myself. And I took the call, and I'm a huge Southampton fan as well, and he played for Southampton. So the receptionist looked over and said, "Oh, we got Peter Shilton on the phone for you." And I had that many football mates at the time, and if you're involved in football, you'll know it's all banter. And I said to my mate, "There's no chance this is Peter Shilton." So I picked the phone up, went, "All right," like that, expected to be one of my mates. He went, "Oh, hello, Paul." He said, "It's Peter Shilton here." I went, "Yeah, okay, Peter." Like almost disrespectful. He went, "No, seriously, it's Peter Shilton here." And you know when you start that little bit of panic sort of comes in, thinking, "Fuck, it could be Peter Shilton." And I was trying to pick up the voice. I was trying to pick up it as my mate's voice, trying to do a Peter Shilton impression. It took him about 2 minutes to get to the point that he wanted to sell his house, and he, had been given my name to use and all the rest of it. And I went to see him, and it was a house his kitchen was like an aircraft hangar. I mean, it was just an unbelievable, experience. And that's the type of thing in the early days. One of the benefits, I suppose, to being where I was in Southampton. Southampton's a very small place, really, in relation to what you guys are up here. And you got to know Matt Letizier's, and I'm assuming you know Matt Letizier, please. And I was very fortunate. I was in a sporting environment. I've always been able to go down to Southampton and watch training and be part of watching all the sessions. And especially when Alan Pardew was there, I built Alan a house, and he, as a thank you back, he let me come and watch plenty of the Saints sessions, and that was good. You were watching Southampton progress at the time from League One right the way back through to the Premiership. And if you can't learn from a football environment, from the likes of Pardew, didn't know much from Harry Redknapp, I've got to be honest. But there were a few that I learned from, and there's a few you don't. And what the lads in here who play will tell you is that there's some managers they like, there's some managers they don't like, and if they were going to coach or manage in their own at their own time, they'll take little bits from everyone and discard the bits that they don't like so much. But yeah, I mean, basically left college at 20. As I said, I was playing part-time football in those days, earning £500-600 a week, which was good money back then. One of the little funny stories is I went down to Havant, and I was hoping to get 200, 300. I was just getting married at the time at 21 as well, desperate for a few white goods. And the chairman sat me down at Havant, and we're going back to 87 now, 88. And as I said, in my own mind, I was buzzing at 250, 200 quid. And he sat me down, he said, "Right, I'm not going to bargain with you." He said, "This is what you're going to get. There's no leeway either way." He said, "You're on a £500 basic, £50 a go and £50 a win." Now at the time my mortgage was about £400 a month. I remember looking at him thinking, fucking hell. But trying to keep that face of, yeah. And I said to him, "So there's no leeway in that at all." And chairman are brilliant at this. You can say, "There's no leeway in that at all." He went, "No." I went, "Right, sure there's no leeway?" He said, "Well, fuck me, what else do you want?" I said, "Well, I need a fridge." This is a true story. I said, "I need a fridge. I need a fridge freezer, really." So I set out as a fridge, and he didn't say no, so fuck it, I'll go for the fridge freezer. So I got a fridge, I mean, the end of the story, I got a fridge freezer and a washing machine, and got £500 a week, £50 a go, and I walked out of there, and I rung my wife up, my first wife, I've had a few, and the current Mrs. Doswell was shocked that we'd got all of that. And as I said, so that was, in those days, and I know a lot of people in this room, I see a few of the boys at the back have earned decent money from non-league football. But I always trained Tuesday, Thursday nights. I played Saturdays. I used to watch my mates on a Sunday, and then from there I was also working hard as well. I was working 7 from the morning till 7 at night. Used to leave the office, go straight to training, get in at midnight. You know, that was my life. And in the summer I played cricket from May the 1st right the way through to the end of July. I used to play cricket as well at a good level. So my life pretty much was work and sport, which is probably why I'm on to wife number 2, because it's not always easy to juggle everything. You need understanding partners if you're as selfish as some of us are. I mean, it is a selfish it is a selfish thing to be as well, if I'm being honest.
I'm saying, is that what you think it takes? I mean, we've got a lot of young players here in general, but whether it's in business or sport, hard work, determination.
Yeah, you know all the cliches about hard work and and ethics and all the rest of it, but I've met loads and loads and loads and loads of people through my life, and I mean, I've got some really good mates of mine, and I won't name one or two of them, but they're just rascals. You know, that they will do anything thinking they'll earn a quid for not doing anything, and invariably they don't earn a quid. And I've got other people that I know that work their socks off and are successful. And there's no easy way to success. It is grafting. And everyone who comes up to me with a scheme, you met people that, okay, can you invest in this? Can you invest in that? No, because it's too easy. I've seen all these Ponzi schemes. I've seen all these other schemes that are put to me, and I've seen other people get sucked into it. And that's one bit of advice: is don't get sucked into it, because it never works.
And from the point of view of your business philosophy that you bring into your management, so how does that combine? You've gone with Eastleigh and now with Sutton, and both clubs you have taken on a journey. Yeah. Which is what we love to hear about and what I love to do. But the question is,
how?
Tell us what.
Well, it's just passion, really. It was passion. I played for Eastleigh. That was my last club. Played there for 3 years. Say similar level to what we manage. I was 30, and this is a big one. I was 30 and ended up with a serious knee cruciate, bad tackle. Finished me football-wise, and I realised that I couldn't stay at home on a Tuesday, Thursday. Desperately unhappy at that point as well, because I wasn't involved in football. And I need football as much as football as such needs me. And I recognise that. I recognise that, that what I do at Sutton is as much for me as it is for anybody else, because I just need football. And it's you can be called sad at times as well because of the way you are and how driven you are. But I think that's the word, really, is just being driven, and driven to also have standards. And the standards that I set within the football club are no different to the standards that I set at work. And I don't allow it. We don't allow those standards to drop. So I think standards are a key part of what we're about as well.
And also putting and implementing continuity plans. So tell us a little bit about the whole 3G turning Sutton. That was your.
Yeah, well, I sort of did it at Eastleigh in the first instance. I mean, non-league clubs are traditionally going to. I mean, Ebbsfleet currently are backed by a Kuwaiti. He's a billionaire, and so you can't compete because one, you can't compete in the short term, but in the long term, when this guy leaves, and trust me, he will leave. Ebbsfleet will go down as quick as they come up, and I could give you a number of examples of clubs where a rich benefactor comes in, but unfortunately rich benefactors ultimately get bored and they go on to their next plaything, whereas for me it was about sustainability and giving the club forms of income. So when I went to Eastleigh, I went and paid, just a silly thing, but I went and paid 100 grand to tarmac the whole area, and then we turned it into a park and ride for Norwich Union. Now that got me back 50 grand a year for the next 20 years. So, that's a sealed, it's that's a blue chip company. I then went and put in a 3G pitch at the back of the stand, and that made us income. So everything that I do is tended to be income providing. I've done exactly the same principle at Sutton. Such that if you get run over by the proverbial bus, the club won't just go like that, because that doesn't do anyone any good, really. So that was the idea behind the 3G. We've had the honour today of finding out that we're hosting the England C game against Slovakia on June the 5th, which is a great achievement for the club. In fairness, we wouldn't have got the dog and duck up there 8 years ago. And now we've got England, England, the FA from England. It's all done very properly, national anthems and all the rest of it. And that'll be quite a proud moment when on June the 5th we play Slovakia at Sutton, because it wouldn't have been considered a venue that people would have come to before. And that's nothing to do with the players on the pitch, that's just to do with perception.
But again, years ago, Sutton would never have dreamt that would happen. likewise, players are allowed to dream because things do happen, and from non-league football. And just tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are. From Jamie Vardy is proof that it can happen.
Well, we know within the level that we're at, there's always a reason why people are at that level. And what you'll tend to find is it's because they've been at the level and they've had 200, 300 league games, and now they're dropping down, and they still want to play football to a good level, and they've still got that desire. The other ones, the young kids that have been released, and that's the hardest group, they come down to the level and they either sink or swim, and occasionally they can go back up again. But it's a great ground in non-league, because if you're going to survive in non-league, which is tough, it's a tough environment to be working and playing on a Tuesday, tough environment to be there on a Thursday. I mean, I always use the analogy that it's a 90-10 with non-league football. 90% of it is real difficult. It's travelling. It's getting home from work, trying to get yourself ready to go to football. It's then pissing down with rain, it's freezing cold. You get beat 4-0. That's the 90%. The 10% is what's coming on Saturday for us, which is a game against Ebbsfleet. We're expecting 3,000 or 4,000 people there. You could win the league, you might not. That 10% you've got to cherish, because the other 90 is not, it is arduous at times. And that's what I would say. I think it's, sport's not easy. And we all, sport is a choice of, I suppose it's a choice of my drug, if I'm being honest. It gives me the massive highs, but you also get the huge lows as well. And I think that's what sport can do for you.
And what advice would you give to some of the young players here, what it takes?
Well, it's the old, it's hard work, really. It's just back to, I always say to my lads that 2 years ago, Wayne Rooney scored 34 goals, 35 goals, because he stayed behind and spent the whole afternoon heading the football. He couldn't head the ball, according to Wayne Rooney. And that season, when he went back and trained every afternoon with the kids, I think he then, the following season, went and got 26 headed goals or something ridiculous. You still see Ronaldo practicing all the time. And yet, listen, I've got a great set of lads, but I still see them come in 2 minutes after the whistles gets blown. There's very few that want to carry on and do what I would consider the extras. The difference between today and my day is now everyone's got to be a bodybuilder. You've got to look, it's about looking the part as well. I've got no problem with that. But if you look at the players now, their physique compared to when I was playing, their fitness compared to when I was playing, there's no way that I could play at the level that these boys are playing at the Conference South. But then, time moves on. But I would say that they probably don't do enough of the stuff that they're not good at, which is probably what we're all guilty of. We don't do enough of the stuff that we're not good at. We only concentrate on the stuff we are good at.
And I've seen you obviously on the sidelines. You're quite quiet on the sidelines.
I think so. I'm measured. No, listen, I'm very passionate, and I have learned as I've gone on to be a bit calmer. That lasts normally about 6 or 7 minutes during the game. But one thing I have learned is it's taken me a long time to get there, but I think the calmer you are, the more rational you can be, the better decisions that you can make. But we were seen as a soft touch. One of the reasons that we went down that path of being quite controversial in the early days was because Sutton was seen as a very white, middle-class team. They were very nice, all after you, old chap. And I went in there and identified within a few weeks that this was a culture that was right from the top very much through to the bottom. And, we went, in essence, we changed that culture. And that culture now is that we're not there to be walked over. I see two of the Wealdstone boys are here tonight. You go to a place like Wealdstone on a Tuesday, Monday night, away from home, and you're not prepared to stand up to the crowd and stand up to what's coming, you'll get trampled on. And, that in essence is part of it. As a management team as well as the players, you've got to be able to walk in these places and feel, you can front up at times.
And finally, from me, before I hand over to the floor, do you feel a sense also of responsibility as a manager and as taking young boys on a journey?
Yeah, I think,
from my point of view,
yeah.
And I appreciate it, and I've dealt with you, so I know that you do care about it. I see, unfortunately, from my side, too many managers who are playing with these young boys' lives, in a way.
I'm in a very fortunate position, though, because I put money into the football club. I don't get paid to do the job. I think that's well known out there in non-league circles. I earned my money out of football when I needed it, when I was 20 and 20 through to 30, trying to pay a mortgage, bringing up young kids. I've been fortunate enough in my business that I don't need, I wouldn't want to take any money from the club. So it puts me in a different position. I'm not under the pressure that paid managers are under. Darren McMahon is coming to me on Saturday. Got no idea what he's on, but he's on a decent whack. And if he loses, it'll be the end of the world. And if I lose, it won't be. And that's a critical difference. So I have got a big advantage there. One of my biggest things, I think, in management has been because I wasn't good enough to make it as a professional footballer, I've tried to make sure as a manager, because I can manage people, in my opinion, better than most professional managers, when Lower can, because I've met most of them and they can't talk to people. Mickey Adams being one with Ryan, as an example. You then look at, you sort of then look at the bigger picture. Now the bigger picture for me is if I can get a young kid out from Sutton to a professional club, then it's a badge of honour for us. Again, we don't need the money. We don't need necessarily 20 grand or 30. I know examples where managers have not told players that there's an offer in for one of their players. That would never happen to us. In fact, it'd be the opposite to us. We actually encourage our players to try and move
and
on.
I think we spoke about that at the time when we met, but that is the difference, and we see it more and more. You're playing with it.
They'll get to a level where you can't do it, but at Conference South and even probably Conference, we would continue to want our players to, and we've got a lot of interest in 3 or 4 of the players at the moment because of the good run we're on. If we lose them, it won't be the end of the world, because you've got to look at it in another way and say, well, they now get the opportunity that perhaps I wish I'd had when I was 21 or 22. So I think it's really important, the culture of that. And players, they're not stupid. They know that we give people a chance. They also know that we give them a chance to move on again. So your reputation in business and in sport is won and lost, just like that, in 1 second. And that's...
It takes a lifetime to earn it.
It does. It does indeed, yeah.
I'm handing over to the floor, ladies and gentlemen. Any questions for Paul?
Yeah, nice to meet you, Paul. It's a pleasure that get this chance to have a chat with you. You spoke earlier, just a few minutes ago, about the ethos of the club and how Sutton was a very nice white middle class club before you arrived.
Yeah.
And slowly over time, you kind of changed that to be a bit more kind of, hard hitting, I suppose, and more prepared. Does that ethos, that mentality, go right to the grassroots of the club? Is that something you expect the development side of things, the academy, to take on board?
Yeah,
embrace.
Get too controversial about this because I'm from Leafy, Hampshire, so you've got to see it from a different perspective from where I come from. But we have we've embraced at Sutton not only the players. If you see the players that we've signed, Marvin Williams is now our academy director. He has attracted, I think, 30 odd to the first year. Which is the first year that we've done it. So yeah, all of a sudden we got 30 kids coming through. The ethos of the club is very disciplined and doing things properly. They're learning that already in year 1, and now Marvin's taking it on to year. We're now going to have 3 teams next year. So I think we're up to 50 or 60 kids for next year. So I think the culture will get driven, and Marvin played for me. So one of the things that you try and do is put people in play that you feel represent your values and what you're trying to do. Yeah. So Marvin Williams being a key member of the team for us, played professional football, understands it, kids relate to him, like him, and that sort of is a culture that I think we're putting through right from the under 8s, because we're in control of the 8s as well at the club, right the way through to the 18s now. To be honest, the 3G as well has enabled us to get the whole of the under 8s through to the 18s back at the football club, because before I think we had 26 teams going to 26 different venues across the Sutton Borough, and now all 26 train at the club, which is fantastic. And what we're seeing now on match days is 26 junior teams, at least half of the various teams and the kids coming to watch. And that means dad has to come along, and and mum comes along and you start now, and then they think, oh, I actually quite enjoy this. And that's how our crowds are built, from maybe 500-600 to now regularly 1,000. And we know that we're going to push this on to probably 1,500, 2,000 quite quickly. But it's organically growing it. But what you'd love, and this is a bit, I have to temper a bit, I'd love to have a pathway where the under 8s become a first team player. The biggest problem even at our level is that to get to that level is so difficult.
Yeah, of course.
So, the pathway is there for them, but yeah, I would say that the ethos of the club starts from there now, right the way through, and that's been a pleasing aspect of it all.
And just one further question, if you don't mind. Is that kind of in line then with the county FA, for example, Surrey FA, and what the FA are trying to do in terms of youth development and bringing players through, getting players to fall in love with the game? Is there ever any conflict between academies and what the FA are trying to do? I guess is the question. You're left to your own devices. Can you do as you please?
You can do as you please. I think that I've got to be honest. Surrey FA have come on board in the sense that we're doing all their referees levels and coachings at the ground now. But our relationship with Surrey FA is sound, but that's about as far as I could, as far as I could put it. The referees have started to come down, and that's interesting for me to be able to talk to referees about what the most recent rules are and bits and pieces. But no, I don't think the FAs and the clubs marry particularly well, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Careful though. Working at a London FA. London FA.
Anyone? Yes, Rev.
Well, you touched on the 3G. I know it was obviously installed over the summer. I know that you personally invested quite a bit of money into it, and you touched upon how, from however many teams are going to different sites, they're all in one location.
Yeah.
Firstly, how much pride do you take in actually visually seeing that happen now on a regular basis? And secondly, does your investment kind of reiterate if you want to leave a bit of a legacy at the club?
Good question. Legacy is a strong word for me. I mean, Bruce rang me up and said, we just got the London. I mean, it's public knowledge. It's not an issue. I mean, the 3G pitch was 450,000. I paid for it myself. The 450. The club's going to pay me back over 10 years, 45 grand a year for 10 years. So, whilst I'm paying it for the club are going to pay it over that period. For me, it was a nice thing to be able to do for the football club. It was a nice thing to be able to do for all the kids to be able to come and play. And then, as I said, that comes back to what my passion is. Some people go and spend it on a first-class holiday or whatever. I tend to want to put it into the football club. But I won't just, we don't put money into anything, the playing budget or whatever. Ours is specifically into things like going and spending, money to bring the whole of the club back together. The other thing that we felt was the club was very, very dated, and we spent £200,000 the year before that refurbishing all the stand and refurbishing all the outside areas. If you go to Sutton now, it looks like a very, very nice football ground. And I think the nicest thing was to get that phone call to say, that England wanted to use our venue. That was probably a big thumbs up for the work that we've done. But this is very much run by volunteers. We haven't got any wealthy people at the club. The chairman's amazing, and he had to back my ideas, because at the end of the day, I haven't given them the money. The money will get repaid over a long period of time, interest free. But what we've done is made an income stream that makes it achievable that can be paid back. And so again, it's a gesture from me that's allowed the club to do it now, rather than when you get that proverbial Man United in the FA third round. But it's lovely for me to come on a Saturday now and see. Wayne's our ambassador. He's my goalkeeping coach. He's pretty much follows me around every club I go in a nice way. Wayne's now in charge, up there with doing the 3G pitch. He also is the ambassador for our disabled team. And one of my massive enjoyments is our disabled team play between 1 and 1:30 on the pitch. And the joy that they get, don't they, from playing. And he's the worst one, because he won't let anyone score. I saw him do this horrendous tackle the other week. If you'd been a referee, you'd have sent the guy off. But their enjoyment from it is absolutely fantastic. And then after that, they come off, and then we get another. At half time, we got the under-8s playing in a six-a-side during half time. You can't beat that. You cannot beat that concept. And I think you guys have played on it. The actual surface is fantastic as well, isn't it?
I was going to the game the night before.
Yeah.
I couldn't take the game seriously in my head. I was thinking, playing on 3G, I've never played it before. And then afterwards, I couldn't get enough of it. It was good. It was surprisingly good, because usually you play on stuff that you train on, it's not the same.
Yeah.
There was a lot obviously better quality. We can't afford to have the good stuff.
Yeah, but it's also, and again, Sutton were put in a fortunate position in that regard. We went for the best possible surface, the best possible, and it's not just the actual carpet, it's what you put underneath. It's a soft rubber, and that's what gives it the give, and that's what makes it seem like a. But that pitch, everyone who's come to it has said they wouldn't know whether it was grass or whether it was a 3G. and that's the biggest compliment I think that we can pay. And they're going to get better. In 10 years' time, ours look poor compared to what comes in 10 years' time. But it's interesting that the opposition players and the opposition managers really enjoy playing on it, which was actually quite important to us. They didn't come and and start slipping up and we got beat today because actually our away record's better than our home record this year. And I think a lot of it is because these boys over there actually look and think, actually I quite fancy this today. Sutton of old was a horrendous pitch, really, dust bowl and bouncy, and teams used to come there and probably not fancy it. So it's interesting in that regard. We haven't necessarily given ourselves a massive sporting advantage, even though supporters will assume, especially away fans, it's they're top of the league because they've got a plastic pitch, but that's not actually the case.
How's the 3G pitch work for conference football this season?
Yeah, it's passed for conference football. League Two are split 21-22, I think, equally at the moment. We've got to basically sign an agreement such that if we got into League Two, that we would rip the pitch up and go back to grass. So you can guarantee that we'll throw every game in April. No, I mean we're that close to League Two now, also wanting it. And for us we're safe. I can say it publicly. Listen, we're a non-league club. We're a good non-league club, and we'll never ever be a league club. Part of that is, it's a fact that the budget we've got wouldn't be increased anywhere near enough for us to, but we can compete. And when you see Dover, sort of getting third and fourth at the moment, and we'd have a similar budget, if not better than Dover, and training twice a week, like we try and train twice a week, there's every chance that you can get in and around it. But it would be, we got to sign that agreement, and if it happened, you just have to look at it when it comes. But I think at that point, there's every chance that League Two would also be in for artificial 3G as well, because it is that good. Well, ours is the same surface as Kilmarnock. We went up and actually looked at the Kilmarnock surface, looked at the Kilmarnock pitch. We watched the Celtic game there, and it was that good. I mean, I knew that day when we walked away that was the pitch that we would go for. And also, the actual people that put in the pitch, Slatter and co, they did it in 8 weeks. They took our grass pitch up and put that new pitch in. We played Bristol Rovers 8 weeks and 1 day after they started taking our pitch up. So again, it's so important you get the right company in to do that for you. But the quality is unquestionable.
And what about your ground? Has it got the grading?
Yeah. No, we're up to League Two. We are. So it's achievable, but it's not something that we view ourselves as a good non-league club, and we'd like to be at the best non-league level we can get to. That's not lack of ambition; it's just being honest. Oh, you'll get that. No problem.
Last question, back to you, Rev.
Can you just reinforce to everyone who may not be aware of the match this weekend, your thoughts on it and what the blow should potentially do for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Ebbsfleet have got 81 points. They've been top all season, and rightly so. If you want a comparison, it's like Manchester City against probably West Ham in that sense of the budgets. I mean, we're not a Leicester, but you'd certainly consider us more an Everton or a West Ham type team. Ebbsfleet absolutely flew away with it at the start, and we had our traditional slow start. We had a team meeting, I think, on November the 5th, when we all agreed that we were all shit. And from that point on, we haven't lost. And it's gone 23 games now unbeaten. There's a lot of variables in football. Mainly one of them is luck. And football's one of the few sports that you play that you can be by far the better team and lose. You wouldn't have it in boxing, for example. But in football, you can batter an opposition team for 89 minutes and lose on a penalty. So there's too many variables in football, and that's why I get nervous on playoffs and other bits and pieces. But the situation is that we've caught Ebbsfleet up with 3 games to go. They've got 2 games to go. We're a game in hand. We've got a better goal difference, and if we beat them on Saturday, then it looks likely we'll go on and win it. And if we draw, it's all back in the melting pot. If we lose, it's probably back into their hands. So it's a classic game. They're bringing 1,000, by all accounts, 800 to 1,000 travelling supporters, which is brilliant. I think they booked 8 or 9 coaches. And it's one of those days that you dream of. As a manager, you want that. As players, you want that. It should excite you, not make you nervous. But we're expecting almost a full house at Sutton on Saturday, 3,000 to 4,000, which for us is terrific. But that's what we want more of, and that's why we want to play the Wrexhams and the Tranmeres. And I mean, if we played Woking and Bromley, local derbies, we'd get 2,000 and 3,000 at the ground. And we thrive, we thrive on, as footballers and sportsmen, on the thrill of also people watching, because we've all got egos. That we're all in sport for a reason. Most of us have got a big ego, and whether that's because you want to perform, which most of us do, you want to perform in front of the crowds and you want to perform in front of the supporters, good and bad sometimes. So, yeah, it's an exciting game. I do mean this as well, about one game at a time. I mean, everyone's saying to me, you've won it. We haven't won it, I don't think, until probably after the Chelmsford game. So it's not just this Saturday. I think there's 2 games to go, Rav, to answer your question. But it is exciting, yeah.
Well, one thing I'm sure of is that everyone in this room, the first result you'll be looking for on Saturday is Sutton's result.
Thank you. We'll all come down. You're more than welcome to come down. I mean, that'd be great.
I'm sure we all wish you good luck. When I met Paul, my impression as I left was this is not only obviously a very interesting man who's been on a fantastic journey, but more importantly than anything, a very nice man. And I'm sure you'll all agree that that's the most important thing when you try and do business, especially in this industry.
Trust.
To do it in a nice, fair, to do it in a trustworthy way. And I'm privileged that we've done some business together in that way. And very, very grateful for you for sharing with us your thoughts. I'm sure all of you will join in me in saying a big thank you and round of applause. Paul Doswell, thank you.